Hello, everybody. Lucas Haneman here, and welcome to this week's episode of Guitar Tone Tuesday. Today's episode is the first in a series of 3 videos that I shot with my friend George. George has a nice collection of vintage instruments, many of which are Gibsons, ranging from the early 1900s all the way through the 1960s. On today's episode, we decided to take a deep dive into one particular instrument model, which is synonymous with the great Robert Johnson. Now, I do have to apologize for one thing. There is some RF frequency interference in this video, some strange noises in the background that appear in this particular episode and not in the others, thankfully, that I recorded at George's place. I did think about going back to his house to reshoot this episode, but he lives about an hour and a half away from me, so I haven't had the chance to. I figured I'd release it anyways, because there is some amazing history with this particular guitar. I do apologize for the extra noise, but I hope you enjoy the episode nonetheless. And I think that, just maybe, this guitar could be haunted, and maybe that's why there's some extra noise in this video. Watch it for yourselves and let me know what you think in the comments section below. Enjoy. Hello, everybody. Lucas Haneman here. Welcome to this week's episode of Guitar Tone Tuesday. I'm here with my friend George, and we're talking about some vintage guitars today. And I thought that this specific instrument deserved its own episode. So, hey, George, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for coming out. It's great.
It's a pleasure. So what do we have here? What's this guitar?
So it's a funny bird with a long history. The short answer is it's a 1926 Gibson L1 catalog model, meaning it doesn't actually carry the Gibson logo on the headstock that would have traditionally been there, and so that would be sold at a lower price, a more accessible price for the for poorer musicians.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's amazing. And well, let's get into the story because I think this guitar has a pretty fascinating history.
So sure, yeah, yeah. Well, as we were talking earlier, as you know, I could probably go on for a couple of hours at this rate, but I'll sort of paraphrase the whole story because where it came from, where it is now, and we just finished shooting an episode of One Guitar, 100 Hands. So thank you for that.
It was a pleasure.
Up on my channel shortly.
Yeah.
Its history, we've put a lot of effort with a few friends to trace back its history to its point of origin. So we know that it was born in Kalamazoo, Michigan. It was first retailed in Calcutta, India, and we know that because there's very, very fine print on the back of the neck that took me forever to decipher.
Wow.
T.E. Bevans was a known Gibson retailer in the UK, and obviously at that point in history, you know, they still thought they owned India, so they would have had retail outlets there at the presumably the army base or something.
Wow.
So we know that's where it was born and where it lived. Where we can actually track and pick up its story is in 1964. It was a birthday gift for a fellow named Jamshid, who it was one of only 3 birthday gifts he had ever received in his whole life from his parents. They were that poor. But when he was in 1964, he was 14 or 15. His dad went down to the Thieves' Bazaar, and so he got it as a gift. And as it turns out, it being a gift becomes an important part of this instrument's history. So I'll fast forward to the next few steps. Jamshid immigrated to Canada in the early 70s, lived in Toronto, and the guitar was incredibly beat up and rough. Most of the wear and tear, which coincidentally, if not for good reason, is you lean this up against the picture of Robert Johnson's guitar. The wear and tear is identical, like disturbingly similar. So I'm not going to sit here and say it's Robert Johnson's guitar, but if Robert Johnson's guitar still existed, this has the best chance of anything to have been it. In fact, I can prove it was on the production line the same time as Johnson's L1.
So it could be.
It
could be.
You see, I can't prove it is,
right?
But you can't prove it's not either.
Right.
so Jamshed moved to Toronto. The guitar was incredibly rough shape. This fellow named Tom O'Brien that he lived with or near, and I'll get back to that story. Got the guitar in better playing condition, and when Jamshed became an architect and moved to the States, to California, he left the guitar behind for Tom as a gift. So Tom enjoyed the guitar for a few years, and then Douglas Cameron comes on the scene and is subletting Tom's apartment. The guitar is in rough shape again. It's been beaten and abused, and it's a beach party guitar. No one really realized what it was by this point in its life. And Douglas tried to buy it from Tom. Tom said no way. Didn't tell Tom he wouldn't sell it because he couldn't bring himself to sell something he received as a gift. When Douglas moved into the apartment, the guitar was hanging on the wall with a post-it note on it that said "Enjoy." So it was gifted to Douglas. It was Douglas's main instrument for, not main, but one of his main instruments for about 40 years. And we're talking about a Juno nominee musician, right? Mm-hmm. So someone of note, recorded numerous albums on it, and was playing at the Transac Club in Toronto one night. Got there, loosely story goes, got there on the wrong evening. So tossed the guitar back in the car, went in to hang out for a bit, listened to the musician, went back out to his guitar, rear window's broken, all of his teaching books, because he was a teacher, all of his teaching books, the guitar, everything's gone. So
a musician's worst nightmare.
Exactly. So he spent 2 years thinking, okay, I've gotten over it, the guitar is gone.
Right.
Rewind the story a little bit. Years ago, Class Axe guitars in Kemptville, I found an absolutely smashed piece of Ovation hanging on the wall. Brought it home because Bob at Class Axe hates Ovations, and I'm going to fix this damn thing, sit on his doorstep and busk it, just to annoy him. I get into it, get the guitar back together. Bob says, "Do you want the case?" Fine, I'll take the case. I look at it, and it's covered in CKBY and Ampa Stomp, stickers like, holy crap, I've got Wayne Rostad's guitar.
Wow.
Which I still have over in the other room here.
Really?
So that CTV picked up on that story, so it gained some notoriety. Guy in Spencerville breaks his guitar that lives in Toronto near the Transac Club. I put his guitar back together because he saw the Wayne Rostad story. He's back in Toronto, walking through Kensington Market area. Someone's throwing garbage out of an apartment. They're just cleaning out an apartment to re-rent it, presumably. And he almost literally sees this guitar flying through the air, heading into this van to go to the dumpster, grabs it, gives the guys $50 for it, and decides he has to give it to me as a gift. So this guitar it won't die no matter how hard people try.
Right.
And its life as a gift just keeps going forward. So so that's why the core of the story, and we've built the Upper Canada Folk Fest around it. We've built One Guitar, 100 Hands around it. Douglas is involved. He's playing at Folk Fest. Tom is coming as well, so there's going to be 3 of the last owners there.
Wow.
But as much as Doug wants the guitar back, and I know in my heart, the day he says, "George, I can't do this anymore, I need my guitar back," I will cry and I will give him the guitar.
Right.
But when he found out that I had it through another video I produced, put together with Scott Cook, brilliant folk musician, Douglas saw it and he reached out to me on an email one night and says, "I think you have my guitar." So we exchanged. Okay, sure enough, I have your guitar. It breaks my heart, but I've got to give it back to you.
Yeah.
And then at 3 a.m., this tome of an email comes in about the history of the guitar, where it's been, what he's done with it, the albums he's recorded on it, and the punchline is, but it's on its own journey now. It's on its own new journey, and it's not my place to stop its new trip that it's on. Which is why you're sitting in our house today to play One Guitar, 100 Hands.
What an incredible story. I mean, what are the odds of all those things lining up? It's just amazing,
And it barely, That's the condensed version. That barely
Right.
scratched. I'll tell you one more thing about a coincidence about the guitar, okay?
Yeah.
Douglas Cameron was a luthier. He worked at 12th Fret in Toronto. One day, Ian Tamblyn walks in with his 1930s Nick Lucas Gibson, which is very similar to this, just fancier. Wanted new tuners on it. So Douglas puts the new tuners on it. Ian comes back to pick up the guitar, and Doug says, well, here's your old tuners. What do you want with them? And Ian says, well, they're old, worn-out tuners. You can have them or throw them away, whatever you want. So Douglas took those tuners, put them on this guitar. So a few months ago, when Ian Tamblyn played One Guitar, 100 Hands, he's sitting there tuning the guitar, and I got to say, do those tuners feel familiar to you? Because they were yours from the from the 80s when they got... Everywhere we turn, another story like that comes out.
Incredible. Yeah. Absolutely incredible. And let's just talk really briefly about the specs on this guitar. So these guitars, like initially, were introduced in 1902 as like an archtop version, which we'll talk about in another episode.
One right over there.
Yeah, and then were reintroduced in 1926 as the flat top version. So this is the second generation. It's got a spruce top, right? Not sure with Gibson whether sometimes people say it was red spruce, other people say it was sitka spruce. So it's a little hazy with Gibson. We don't know for sure. A beautiful mahogany neck, and I read conflicting things about the back and sides. Do you know what they are in this?
They are mahogany.
They are mahogany.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I read that some people say the first couple of years of flat tops it was maple, but so mahogany back and sides, and basically a parlor-ish, size guitar. Gibson's take on, something like that. So it's got a nice narrow waist here. But yeah, it's just an incredible sounding guitar. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Really, really, really amazing. And I'll play it just a tiny bit more before we sign off here. And I'll pick up a slide because I think, we've got to do that with this.
The other technical thing about this compared to a proper Gibson is that this is ladder braced as opposed to X braced.
Okay, right.
And there are those that will tell you that true audiophiles, and I can argue it back and forth because there's stories that when Johnson's guitar was stolen was destroyed was actually before the first recordings were done. So but nonetheless, there are those that will say they can tell the difference between an X braced and a ladder braced on the recordings, and that definitely Johnson's was a ladder braced
wow
top. Yeah.
Wow. Well, yeah, pretty amazing. So cool for that kind of stuff, just swampy, and it's dried out old wood, and there's nothing like that. There's no substitute for that,
If you were to hold that
amazing.
guitar up to the light outside, you can actually see you can see light through the cracks in the back of that guitar.
Wow.
It's that dried out.
It's that dried out.
Crusty, yeah.
Yeah.
Been through a lot.
But that's great.
Exactly.
It's amazing that way. So thank you so much for sharing the story about this guitar, George.
Thanks for the interest.
Thank you. Yeah. We'll see everybody again soon. Thanks. I know you know something's happening. Why don't we both just speak up? I know you know something's happening. It could be love. I think